Okay. I believe we're recording. Yes.
The red dot is recording.
I wonder if I exit that, if it'll still record. Does it still seem like it's recording?
Yes, it still looks like it's recording. I still see the red dot.
Oh, good. Yeah, me too. Because there is a part where it says it's recording, but if you press an X, it like blurs the top part. So I'm like, wanted to get rid of that little bar there. But we were talking about amazing Zen tests. Of unorganizingly starting early. Oh, that's funny though, man.
It's the right time now. So.
Yes. It's amazing that a lot of Buddhists are on time anywhere, because we don't really think about it that often. Or at least I don't. I don't, obviously.
Yeah.
So basically, magical thinking is awesome, and don't be practical. That's what I've learned so far. No, I'm joking. Dhammarato's watching like, no.
No.
The opposite. But that's interesting though. Magical thinking, or like, I'd look at it almost more like bless you, buddy. Bless you. Oh boy. Oh, I gotta blow this guy's nose here. Hold on. There you go, buddy. Wow, that was a big one. There you go. Yeah, my son, as I told you, but if other people are watching, he's staying home today because his body is not feeling that well. But magical thinking, I look at it sometimes more like, or at least I try when I come across it to look at it more like an allegory, kind of like how Dhammarato talks about Adam and Eve. Even if some people like believe certain things that are like metaphysical and all this stuff, I always try to find a way when I'm reading it or I'm listening to people talk about it to bring it back to a more practical, realistic type of way of thinking about the Dhamma. Like that one video I told you that I sent about Milarepa, of that nun who was talking about how the basically these demons like anger, hatred, and delusion visited him. And he tried to get rid of them with some forceful methods, but when he just was showing them nurturing, loving kindness, they disappeared, they vanished. And although some people may look at that story and take it as there's actually demons and I think it's a great allegory to teach somebody how to transform dukkha into sukha,
Yeah.
As long as you explain to them like it's not like it. Honestly, people can believe whatever they want, but the point of the Dhamma is not to get into even metaphysics. It doesn't even matter. The question doesn't even arise. We're interested in getting rid of dukkha, gladdening the mind here and now, right where we sit, right where we are. Because, like in the words of Dogen Zenji, he said, if you can't find peace right where you are, right where you sit, then where do you expect to find it? And I always thought that was such a beautiful way to put it. Because at the end of the day, it's good for us to ask ourselves, like, what do we want? And most people, what they think they want, because of avidya, ignorance, is that they think that they want temporary sense pleasure. And they get what they want and all that comes along with it, all the karma that comes along with craving temporary sense pleasures. And when you are craving these things, you're our awareness starts to build these mythical creatures like the ego called I, me, my, mine. And the more we focus our awareness on them, the more we have ignorance and see this I, me, my mind is real, the more real it appears to become. And the suffering comes along with it. The dukkha, the better translation is Dhammarato always says that dissatisfaction comes along with it. And why go down that route? Nobody would take, if you were walking in a forest and you came to a fork in the road, nobody would purposely, no animal even would take the path that was the most difficult. They'd be foolish. Even the animals know to take the path of least resistance, where all the brush is cleared, where all the, maybe there's less dookie on the floor, and they could stay clean, they can travel faster. But because of ignorance, some people might take the path that has tons of boulders, tons of sticks in its way. And because they've convinced themselves, and not only have they convinced themselves and developed these sankharas over time, but due to the way our society thinks, the way our society raises us, brainwashes us really, or gets our brains all filthy, actually. They teach us everything opposite almost. If you actually take what society teaches you and invert it, you'll actually be on the right path. So we can take all our worldly knowledge, for those who are not familiar with the Dhamma, not familiar with Buddhism, basically take everything you've learned from society and flip it upside down, and then you'll be on the right path. Good is bad, bad is good, black is white, white is black. And you can see it in your society when you're walking. Take any town that you're in, and usually if you go to, in America anyways, I'm assuming it's the same for Canada and in Europe as well, but in the West, go to your town and walk in the downtown area, walk in the main street area, and usually, more often than not, you'll see a whole bunch of statues or plaques dedicated to war. And sure, it's nice to dedicate the brave men who fight in war and all these things, but the gist of what they're saying is that if you want honor in this society, you have to be on the side of pursuit, of constantly fighting against reality, fighting against your fellow man, fighting against being satisfied here and now. Because in the Western society, it teaches you can't just all be people, you can't just all be equal. There has to be something that sets us apart to make us better than the person sitting next to us. And it's all bullshit. The things that they claim are making somebody more or less valuable or have more or less virtue usually lies with skin color, with status, with careers, with goals that they've either achieved or not achieved. And it all exists here. It's all delusion. You know, if you think about a small island somewhere, and if you could imagine the first people that have ever been born on the earth were born on this small hypothetical island, there's nothing really that separates them from one another. There's nothing really that that's too difficult as far as physical needs and wants go. The sex will come naturally. The food will come naturally from the unpolluted oceans and rivers. The water will come naturally, and a nice, clean environment in the forest will come naturally. And in that sense, it is a lot like the Garden of Eden. Even more so, even more so, a reason why it's such a good example of the kingdom of heaven being within us. In our natural state, we have everything we could possibly want. But society, for whatever reason, has fallen from grace. If you're born on this hypothetical island, soon somebody who's hungry and eats the clean food and the beautiful food from the trees, what happens is they want more food. You know, they see that this beautiful female has gone with this other male, and they don't like that. Maybe if I collect more fresh water, more fish, she'll want to be with me. Maybe if my hut is a little bigger than his, I'll get more things that will make me happy, because I'm not satisfied in the moment. So I got to start putting in parking lots, putting in roads, putting in rivers, putting in tribes, putting in classes, making castles, making different countries on this island. And before you know it, you're just swimming in dukkha. You're covered in shit, covered in delusion. And these sankharas, these shitty delusions and habits, both mental and physical, spiritual and physical, they go on and they go on and they go on, and they last almost forever, you know? Nothing lasts forever, but these, throughout history, it seems like these sure have a, a pretty strong hold on this reality. But so you're born, and then you're learned these things, these bad habits from these societies that have created this horrible way of living, this essential dissatisfaction factory, you know. And the brain has a tendency to lean towards this because monkey see, monkey do. When you're with somebody, if they're miserable, it doesn't take any time at all before you become miserable. Misery loves company. And if you see somebody fighting and scraping for some golden land that's just over the horizon, pretty soon you're going to get swept up in their energy if you're not careful, if you're not mindful. They're gonna be saying, "Hey, come along with me, man. The grass is greener over here." And then, if you're not careful, before you know it, you might spend your whole life chasing these phantoms of dukkha, these phantoms of suffering, just like they are, just like society does. All one has to do is turn on the evening news, and you'll see what a state this quote beautiful society has led us to. You know, spending billions of dollars of tax money to go to NASA for what? For a couple of grainy footages of somebody playing golf on the moon. Cool. I'd rather have the $1 trillion and make it into cleaning the rivers and cleaning, stopping the wars and feeding the homeless. And you'll see wars everywhere, and you'll see commercials. And commercials are interesting in the Dhamma because it's if you observe somebody who's living, or a society that's living in an ignorant way, it can help lead one toward the light. Because when you watch commercials, you'll notice that they don't work on happy people. Advertising doesn't really work on content, satisfied people, because they're on the hope that they can make you, which is not too difficult, feel like shit about yourself, about the way you look, about the car you drive, about the material possessions you either do or don't possess. And the more miserable we become, the more we fight amongst each other, the more shit we'll want to buy to fill this void created by this sick society. They say, you're too fat, we'll join a gym membership. You're too ugly, we'll wear this makeup. And you don't have enough women, so buy these clothes. You're unattractive. You have to wear more clothes. You have to buy better shoes and all this shit. But the happy person's content wearing rags. The happy person is content with what they have. And I'm not saying, like, if you start following the Dhamma, you must become destitute, or you must become just like, you know, this hopeless outcast in society. I mean, although you can, but it's not the money that's the problem. It's not the material possessions necessarily that are the problem. For example, the heroin addict. It's not the heroin itself that's the problem. It's our attachment and perception in correlation with the drug. that is the problem, or the medicine, depending on how you look at it. If we're sick, the doctor will administer certain drugs like heroin to help with pain in a balanced, unified way. But the same drug on the outside, on the streets, for the addicts, can destroy everything they've ever known, destroy their physical body, destroy their families, destroy their lives. So it's not the money, it's not the material possessions, it's our relationships with these things and our ignorance. But if we can learn to gladden the mind here and now, to see reality as it is, anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanent, dissatisfactory by nature, and inherently empty of a self, past and future self, where most of our dukkha stems from. And again, it's not like this magical thing of there's no self, isn't this crazy and spooky? It's more practical. It's more, sure, there's a me, there's a Dhamma here, this dude, and I have a past and a future. Sure, I have a story, I have a thing, I have a body. Yeah, that's fine. But we're not talking about that. Yes, and some basic level, there is a type of self. That's not what he's saying. What the Buddha's saying with no self is, don't get too attached to these ideas of self, because all it takes a little self-examination, and you see that it's just an illusion. It's just a delusion of the mind. Sure, there is a type of self, but if you attach to that too much, then the whole dukkha ball of wax gets going. That's why a lot of pompous, arrogant, egotistical people will want to make statues of themselves of bronze and gold, like Alexander the Great and Genghis Khan and Napoleon, and so they all want statues so that when they die, what happens? They continue to live on forever. They don't even have the basic knowledge of anicca, dukkha, anatta, aging, sickness, and death. They will fight tooth and nail against death, so much so that they'll create great schools and buildings and monuments and Trump towers as a homage to their greatness. And they lack the panya, the wisdom to see that these things will eventually come to an end. They will not last. And spending a lifetime of cruelty and ignorance to make these statues and buildings and ideas of people remembering you is a fool's errand. It's stupid. And you're just going to suffer and die.
Yeah.
So don't worry. Oh, my career's not good enough. My family, they're all engineers and accountants, and I'm just working at this little place here. Who gives a shit? That doesn't matter whatsoever. What matters is, are you satisfied here and now? Are you remembering to look throughout your day? Is there any dissatisfaction? And if you notice that there is, we're waking up, remembering to wake up, because I don't think you could just wake up spontaneous. Maybe in rare instances you could, but you have to remember to wake up and then look in a balanced way. Is there dukkha? Is there shit on the sidewalk that I have to gently avoid with the right effort, with the right unification? All the studying of the Dhamma, like the Theravadins like to do, especially beginning students, all the studying of the Dhamma is great. But if you're only studying, that's foolish. Practice is great. But if you're only practicing and renounce everything else, that's foolish. Having a teacher is great. But if you're only worshiping or becoming a guru, that's foolish. We have to embrace every aspect of the Dhamma. We have to have the wisdom to see it for what it is. And when we're using it properly, the way it's supposed to be used, in a pragmatic, simple way, non-magical way, in order to cool down the mind, in order to gladden the mind here and now, in order to make friendship with like-minded people to help us along this journey. All these things in a balanced, unified way. And maybe guru was the wrong word, but teacher, utilizing the tips from the teacher in a balanced way. It's like we were talking about earlier. Not only do you need the roadmap of where you're going, but it's even better if you have a teacher to help you look at and study the roadmap. And this is important. But eventually we got to get out there in the forest and learn our way by ourselves. And it's not that we cast out the map or the teacher who showed us the map. No, we're unifying that. We're utilizing them in a balanced way. And then you become a great explorer. You become a great, whatever you're doing in that forest. If you're becoming a survivalist, you become a great survivalist. Not by holding on, clinging to one aspect of the Dhamma, but by utilizing all of it. Thereby gladdening the mind here and now in the best way that it can be done. And that's what the Buddha taught us. The Four Noble Truths. There's dukkha, a way out of it. The Eightfold Noble Path. But like our teacher, Dhammarato, says, or my teacher, really, I'm sure he's your teacher as well, but I don't know. People get attached to labels and stuff.
Yeah.
I have no problem calling him my master teacher, Ajahn, because he's wonderful and he teaches all of us out of the kindness, goodness of his heart for free. But like he often reminds us, it's about the Sangha, it's about the Buddha, it's about the Dhamma, it's about all these things in a balanced way. Because if that wasn't the path, we would all just be a bunch of hedonists, or we'd just be a bunch of nihilists. But it's every little cling of the ladder. And as Dhammarato likes to say, it's the Eightfold Noble Doorway rather than path, would be a better translation. Because it's available to us here and now. The breath is the most wholesome activity we can possibly care to view. And when we're viewing this breath, it's here, like the Buddha pointed his finger on the soil. This is reality. This is as real as it gets, at the tip of the nose, breathing. No problems, no tigers biting us. There's nothing, like Dhammarato says, there's no Russian police here to get us. It's just our breath. Everything's okay. We're nurturing ourselves. And the more we do this, the more we build momentum, the more familiar we become with what I don't shy away from saying this. I know it's not a self in a magical way, but the more familiar we become with our true peaceful nature. I like to look at it as just kind of a peacefulness, a sukha, a joy, here and now. And we become better at this. We gain confidence. We have pity, the wow factor of, yes, I can do this. This is possible. Not only is it possible, I don't need to have a Christian type of faith. I'm seeing it working here and now. I'm seeing it happen even before I knew what the Dhamma was. I've seen aspects in my life where things that appeared to be huge, big problems, the more I got used to them, the more I changed them in a positive way. They got better. There was less dissatisfaction. A child can see this. And maybe that's why it's partly so subtle and so profound. It reminds me of what Papaji said to this man who wanted to see God. He said, you'll never see God because you need the naivety of a child, the trust of a child in order to see God. A businessman with a huge ego, it's impossible to see that. So for somebody with a big ego, it might be just as difficult for them to see that there's peace here and now, because they're living in a world of delusion. And we need to humble ourselves. We need to come face to face with reality. And it takes a little bit of practice. It takes a little bit of courage and right effort. But before you know it, it's easy peasy. It's nothing difficult. It's remembering that we can transform dukkha into sukha with our speech, both inner and outer speech. That's the true meaning of the speech on the Eightfold Noble Doorway. is that the speech is no different than our thought, and our thought is no different than our mind. So if we're talking shit, it's causing dukkha. There's no wonder that we're feeling the effects of this, the karma of this. So thereby changing our speech, we change the whole world. And a lot of people get the misunderstanding of, I'm a Buddhist, I have to go out and save humanity, save the world. Sure, that could be a noble pursuit, but also it could be a foolish pursuit, because the world is always having aging, sickness, and death, and wars, and all these things. But a better thing to do would be like how we talk about the darkness and the candle of the Dhamma. Sure, it's a dark world, but by gladdening our own mind here and now in a nurturing way, we become light, we become joyful, and we shine. And then other people around us, that's how we change them. We don't change them by saying, like Christians knocking on the door, hey, you hear about the Dhamma, you hear about the Dhamma? We show them in our actions. We show them with our energy that's coming off of us. We don't need to convince them. We don't want to convince them. Sure, it would be nice, but that's not our job. The Buddha didn't give us a job to convince people. He gave us a job to gladden our own mind, if we have the wisdom to do so, and thereby gladdening the whole world for those who are ready to change, to make the change. Our light, like Jesus said, be a light unto the world. You know, our light, sukha, will dispel the darkness of dukkha within ourselves and others as well. And this is how we change people, not by grabbing them by the collar and saying, you'll go to hell if you don't follow us. We show them that, hey, maybe this guy, if he seems like he's having a pretty decent time, I could tell by his energy, he seems to know what's going on. He seems to be joyful. I would like some of that. And like that goes back to that kind of divine selfishness, divine ignorance and divine selfishness. Divine ignorance, we've acquired enough knowledge with the internet. We've acquired enough of societal knowledge, of the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden. We want the divine ignorance we were born with. And the divine selfishness is actually selflessness. When we're selfless, therefore and thereby, then we become complete. Then our true nature appears. By becoming selfless, our true peaceful nature appears. That isn't bound by space and time, or isn't dwelling in, or perhaps is, like Jesus said, be like in the world, not of the world. So we're on the boat. We're not swimming in the water with the sharks. And if we have the wisdom to tell the difference between the beautiful boat of Dhamma and the sea of dukkha sharks, we'll have the clear sight and insight and wisdom to stay dry, nice and dry and peaceful in the boat, and let the sharks fend for themselves. What do you think, bro?
Yeah, I think you've laid out some good examples there, and that, you know, when it comes to, you know, the notion of, okay, going out there and fixing the world, and, you know, worrying about the world, and got to change things in that regard, and it's awful. Like, you don't do that through worrying. You don't do that for caring about the world. What you do is you care for, you know, the world. You don't care about it, you care for it, and you care for it one moment at a time. Just this breath, just this moment, just this person in front of you, right? You don't do that, oh, I'm going to worry and all that, because that's just adding on to the dukkha, that's just adding on to the stress. And it really is coming back to the confidence, to recognizing that, hey, that worry, that stress, it's unbeneficial, it's not helpful, it is a hindrance, right? And so that really adds to the confidence of being able to abandon it. But the point is, we do that one moment, one breath at a time, right? Coming back to what is happening here and now. And through understanding, yeah, that through that wisdom, we can actually care for the world. We can be friendly. We can radiate that loving friendliness, boundlessly. But again, that's not like, okay, we need to do this. As soon as there's that need and that attachment and going off into this conceptual thing where it's just tangle after tangle. And the truth is that, yeah, in one case, when we talk about the conceptual or like what is out there, the world, it's a mess. And that's the way it is. That's samsara. And it's in these cycles, right? But we can still, through compassion, come back and care for each moment. Come back. And this is what's going to make an actual wholesome, positive change in the world. Right. So yeah, no, I think what you're saying is wonderful, yeah. In terms of like
and the like Alan Watts says, or Ajahn Chah too, in other words, but in Alan Watts' words, it's like it's trying to make a straight stick out of a wiggly worm. And with the world, on one end, it is super crazy and not how we like and all these things and imperfect. But in that way, it kind of is perfect because we're aware of anicca, dukkha, anatta. We're aware of aging, sickness, and death as the nature of this reality. So we don't have to fix anything.
Yeah.
And
yeah, exactly.
That acceptance, that nurturing, that easy peasy attitude of everything's fine. We don't have to be saviors to anybody or anything. If there ever was a shot of actually saving the world or other people, that's it, is to have the feeling of the work is done. It is finished. It's perfect, just the way it is. And then you have no problems. You have no answers. You have no questions. These things don't even arise. If somebody comes to you and needs help, you help them, because why wouldn't you? Like Jesus said, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's the most basic, simple truth. We all would like people to treat us kindly in our times of need, not treat us poorly. A child could understand this. And it's like that old Zen saying, the trees are green, the sky is blue, the dog is barking, and if somebody comes to you that needs help, or some being, animal comes to you that needs help, just simply help them the best you can. Don't make a big fuss over it. Just help them. Help your brother, help your sister, help your animal friends. And that is Buddhism. It's being at peace with reality the way it is, and living a simple, compassionate, peaceful life right here in this present moment, from moment to moment to moment. And we have the doorway of the breath here. With sati, we can see our breath. We can be peaceful here and now. And Mara will come around again, and we'll have to transform her again and say, hello, my old friend Mara. I see you. And we rinse and repeat. And some days you may get longer samadhi, and some days you might, but that's not important. These peaceful, even the yanas and all these things, nothing lasts forever. And when the dukkha begins to poke its head out again, we transform it. And that is the Dhamma, the rinsing and repeating of transforming, building up this momentum, this right attitude, this right sukha, this right piti of we can do this, building this confidence, and it gets easier, like lifting weights. It does become easier. It may appear difficult at first, but it's not. It only appears that way. And that's what we learn in practice, that it's actually everything's easy. What could be easier than breathing and enjoying the breath? And if you're not breathing, you're dead. And then all your problems are over, like Dhammarato says, anyways. So if you're not breathing, that's okay too, you know? Don't take your life so personally. Problems will arise with people, with your jobs. And people think that living a monastic life is so easy and so much better. there's not much difference from the worldly life. Sure, you may get some more time of solitude, and that's great. But talk to any monk, and you'll see they still got people arguing. They still got somebody's working more, somebody's doing less. They still got the monk who's watching Netflix for 3 hours in his kuti, and then they still got the monk who's meditating perfectly, and the monk who will falter once in a while. And it's so similar to the householders. You got the Buddhist householders who are doing well, the Buddhist householders that are not following the path. This is life. And I think of the beautiful words of Buddhadasa Bhikkhu when they asked him, can a householder become enlightened, or can you only have to be a monk? And he said enlightenment is beyond householder and monk. It's beyond both of these conceptual notions. This is all dukkha. He would even grab his robe and say, see this? You think this is something. This is an orange garbage cloth. Nothing more. That's what he would say. And how beautiful is that? You know, everybody's swimming in enlightenment. Man, woman, child. It's only our delusion, our belief in this delusion, this ignorance that's prohibiting us from enjoying these beautiful fruits of the Dhamma that are right here, right now in front of us. We're running after this tree of knowledge, and maybe if I drink this tree and not eat from this tree of knowledge, I'll have a better paradise than even where I'm at. And it just opens up a whole Pandora's box of trouble and dissatisfaction and suffering. Tony Robbins said this the other day, and I've heard other Buddhists say it and myself say it, but he said this beautiful thing the other day. He said, you know, if you're sitting by yourself, you know, there's always a myriad of things to be disappointed in or to look at and say, I wish this was different. There's a myriad of things to be depressed over, to be anxious over. But at the same hand, there's also a myriad of things to be glad over. You don't appreciate your legs until one day they get infected and then you have to get them chopped off. Then you'll spend the rest of your life dreaming of a pair of legs, a healthy pair of legs, because we don't see the kingdom of heaven right before us. You know, everybody always donates to the cause after they become affected by it. Very rarely do we donate to the causes before they affect us. You know, because we don't see how lucky we are. Only after we become ill do we appreciate health. Only after we are rolling around in dukkha do we appreciate the times that the sukha was there. And do we see and realize that we don't want to be in this way. But it's like, it really is like the Garden of Eden. There's always something you can appreciate. There's always something to gladden the mind with here and now. And if you have nothing else, there's always the breath, the most beautiful thing. And I like to even say, like, I know boredom has a negative annotation to attach to it, but I always loved boredom. I always loved boredom. And in that way, I was never bored.
Yeah.
Even
That's
as a
it.
child.
If you can make a fun game out of it, and I find this is, part of the practice of Anapanasati is like, okay, part of the game is to spot these hindrances. So you see boredom. Oh, glad to see you. I see you there again, boredom. Are you still bored? No. You're
Yeah.
playing a fun game. So again, it's being on top of it and recognizing, oh, wait, no, I'm not the boredom. The boredom's not mine. The boredom just arises and ceases like everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it can be it's a fun, entertaining, interesting game, and that can build like enthusiasm, right? Oh, let's go and see when these mental qualities arise, and we can check. Oh, is it there? Oh, if it's not there, oh, how lovely it is right now to be free from boredom. Oh, how lovely it is to
Mm-hmm.
be free from, greed and ill will, to recognize that right now. And then if we notice any of the other hindrances arise, like perhaps there's some doubt, how dare you sitting there, Dhammadasa, on your couch think that you can be free from sensual desire or what have you. You
Mm.
know, something like that comes up.
Oh,
And
I'm
it's like,
not.
no,
Definitely not free
but
from that. No, I'm joking.
no, no, no. No, you know, it's kind of thought like that comes up where it's like, oh, well, and then funny enough, the sense desire, oh, well, now I've got to go out into the wilderness, I've got to go do this. So you're dissatisfied
Mm,
with what's now. But the point is to have
yeah.
see through that doubt, recognize the doubt, and be like, oh, wait, I see the doubt. And then, like,
Mhm,
again, can you doubt that you're doubting? So that's kind of the funny
mhm,
thing because you know they talk about like Rene Descartes and like I think therefore I am, but even though we recognize here like okay no you think therefore you think you are right, but the way that he did
mm,
arrive at that was through doubting. Well, we know that there's doubt going on. We recognize there's doubt. Can we doubt that we're doubting? No, we recognize that there's the doubt. Well, in recognizing the doubt, by becoming aware of it, in terms of, you know, practicing this, you've already had success. You've already recognized you've been mindful to wake up to see that doubt. And by having this positive attitude towards that, already making a wholesome change. We're already
mhm.
breaking it up. The doubt starts to fall apart, right? And when it comes back up again, cool. We can toss it out. You know, we can see it again.
Yeah.
Toss it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful movie I watched a while ago. I wonder if it's called. I think it might be called Pontiac Moon. I could be wrong. But there's a beautiful saying he says in there. This Indian guy. He says, "Don't sweat the small stuff, man." He says, and by the way, everything's small stuff. And the kid looks at him. He's like, "Yeah." And that's the Dhamma. Don't worry, be happy. Don't sweat the small stuff. And everything's small stuff. And
Yeah.
if we remember that, man,
Yeah.
if you're
You know what?
satisfied, you're
Yeah.
satisfied.
You know what's funny about that too is, you know, practicing, you know, like meditation or you know getting into seclusion. At that point I would have called it meditation, but in the past I was still so fixated on like doing things right, doing things like correctly, in a way which
Hmm.
was incorrect, in a way which was like,
Yeah,
oh, this is all just doubt, like, oh, am I doing this
yeah.
correctly, am I, you know, that which is
We're
funny enough.
meditating to get something out of it
Yeah,
is
yeah,
incorrect.
yeah,
We're
exactly.
meditating to enjoy what we already have. We're not meditating to get to a level to get more things. We're meditating to gladden the mind here and now with
Yeah,
enjoying everything we have in this beautiful Garden of Eden here. And so often did I do the same thing as you when I was younger. I'd meditate and think, it's coming. You know, the grass is always greener. And the more I meditate, it's coming, it's coming. And little did I realize I just needed to stop chasing everything like a ravenous dog and just appreciating what I had here and now. Setting down this answer question, over analyzing every goddamn thing. Because a lot, and you know, that's a pitfall too, because a lot of Buddhists, like we mentioned earlier, they are intellectuals. They do enjoy reading. They are not like the common people. They're not. There's something that they have a little extra, which can be great, but also there's a danger of over intellectualizing this simple practice, over intellectualizing it to death, where the new beginner comes and he sees the song and he's like, what are these fucking philosophers talking about? And we have to remind them, oh, don't mind us. We're just jabbering like silly gooses, you know, because it's all about just don't worry, be happy. That's it.
yeah, that's
And,
it.
you know, and don't miss that beautiful simplicity that's staring us right in the mirror, right in the face.
That's it. That's
Mm.
the thing. Yeah, that's something that's like very helpful when folks, you know, come on and there's like a question, like, am I doing this right? Am I doing this correctly? It's like
Mhm.
worry about. so much about, am I doing this right? I have to follow this technique exactly, right? There's this technique and it's laid out in this way, and we got to follow it just like this, step by step, right?
Mhm.
And that can lead to doubt. That can lead to like, oh, well, we're not doing it correctly.
Mhm.
It's like, no, the actual thing is quite broad and very simple. It's like, look, remember, look, see, oh, okay, is this coming from a wholesome place? Is this thought, action, whatever? Is it wholesome? Is it unwholesome? Throw out change or
Mhm.
throw out whatever, and to arrive at the wholesome, right? That's it, right?
Yeah.
You wake up, when you remember, you take a nice long breath, right? That's it. That's it. You can
Yeah.
get back to that. But like this like rigidness of like, no, you have to do it like
Yeah.
this. And or even if
Yeah.
you do set up like a little bit of a game or what have you with the practice, right? When the mind wanders somewhere or what have you, okay, cool. We can see that. We can come back. But
Yeah.
there's not this feeling of like, oh, I'm so sad because I forgot the object, and that lingers, right? It's like, no, cool.
Mhm.
Remember, we woke up. Now we can return to appreciating, like you said, this Garden of Eden, this paradise that's right here,
Mhm.
right now in front of us. And that's what it's about. It's about, coming back, dropping the craving, dropping the attachment to all these different things so that we
Mhm.
recognize that this right
Yeah.
here, right now is enough, you know?
The real Buddhist master is nothing special. A lot of people can spend their whole life saying, I have to be the perfect Buddhist. I have to be following every goddamn precept that there is to a point and all this stuff. And eventually the whole shithouse comes collapsing down. Eventually, it's not because, like the Buddha said, it's not going to last forever. You can follow all the rules, do everything perfect you want. And sometimes those people, when they mess up, man, does it hurt them when they mess up. But the master who's saying, I'm no master, really. I'm just an average guy. I'm trying the best I can. And sure, I'll mess up. I have messed up. I'm partly human. I will mess up. And that's okay. Let's not turn this mountain into a molehill, you know? When we do things incorrectly, never mind. Start again. Rinse and repeat. Don't dwell on it. Don't fixate on it. The very act of saying, am I doing it correctly? Am I doing it 100% perfectly? This is the dukkha we're trying to transform, is this notion of Western mindset. Did I study the test? Do you love me yet, Dad? Do you love me yet, Mom? Did I throw out enough garbage? Did I get the right career? Am I doing everything right so you love me? This is exactly what we're trying to transform, is this
Yeah.
mindset of I'm not good enough yet. I must do something. I must run the race, climb the mountain in order to receive that nurturing, unconditional love I should have had, and most likely some of us did have as children, you know?
Yeah, and the cool
And
thing is that when we see that, rather than continuing the cycle of, oh no, like this is bad and wrong, and I'm bad and wrong because those thoughts came up. It's like, no, we recognize, okay, those are just thoughts that arise. They're not helpful. Oh, congratulations, we caught it. And it's just
yes,
building that feedback loop. Now
it's a
we've been in a negative,
biology,
yeah,
just a
we've been,
biology machine. And
yeah,
it has fears, worries. It has crazy, weird thoughts that seem evil, even. But that's not you. That's just a natural process of the mind. It'll throw out good stuff once in a while. It'll throw out some fucking evil shit once in a while. It'll throw out some medium shit. That's just the mind. To think I'm this, to identify with it, that is the self that is non existent.
yeah.
You start identifying with that crazy shithole mind, you're going to experience all the karma that comes along with it. If you believe that that's you, you'll get your wish.
Just like, oh yeah, no, you know what? Whatever, if the thought arose, right, and it's like, oh, that's not a helpful thought, or that's not a beneficial thought. We don't need to follow it. It's not me. That's not mine. Who knew where it came from, right? Like,
Exactly.
okay, but then it's interesting because I feel like it seems to be that the more one does that, like the more, hey, cool, easy, relaxed relaxing thoughts are just, they're going to arise, right? And they can arise
Hmm.
with, like, as we
Yeah.
continue to practice, like, less effort. But
Yeah.
still, I think keeping an eye out, because, sometimes it's about, really repetitively applying that effort. And sometimes it's about relaxing that effort and recognizing that, okay, the effort transforms into energy.
Oh
It's
yeah.
right effort is, when we
Yeah.
really understand what right effort is, when we're thinking, like, and we're in a clear state of mind, it's a light effort. Why? Because it lightens us
Yeah.
up. We're laying down the
Yeah.
dukkha. It's not, I
Yeah.
mean, that's where it becomes energy. It's just like,
And
okay, this is,
it could even heal the body. It does heal the body. It performs seems things that may even seem miraculous or magic, and they kind of are, but really it's just reality.
yeah. Well, because a lot of stuff is caused by a whole bunch of stress. So again,
Hmm.
one
Yes.
of the factors of dukkha can be stress, right? I mean, it's dissatisfaction, suffering, but also that stress and that tension.
Hmm.
So as we are relaxing more, as we're easing more, as we're giving up worry, and we're seeing that it's not helpful, well, yeah, that can help, the health of the body for sure. I have no
That's
doubt
right.
that can be
I
beneficial for that. It's not like a cure all. Again, it's not like you magically, like, get out of it. And this is the issue with, like, the superstitious thinking is like, oh well, you're going to get out of all of these sicknesses. No, you will still encounter
mm,
sicknesses, and who knows, you might
oh
get sick
yeah.
of something due to some condition or what have you, and die younger, or what have you. Who knows? But you will be able to handle that without the same, level,
Yes.
or incredibly alleviated, or it's gone in terms of the dissatisfaction, in terms of the stress, in terms of the suffering.
Yes.
And, like, that's it. Like, that's why
Ki-
this just works.
yeah. It kind of reminds me what you just said of like some of how, and maybe some of our Western listeners will uh, vibe with this because they've grown up in that culture, that Christian culture. But it almost is like the neo Christians have this wrong view of, if I worship God correctly, if I worship Jesus correctly, I'll never suffer, I'll never die, I'll get all the cars and houses I want. But really, I think from a more realistic Christian point of view, they'd be like, hey man, John the Baptist was one of the greatest dudes ever. He baptized Jesus and he got his head chopped off. Jesus Christ himself got
Yeah,
crucified. All the
exactly.
apostles got crucified and their skin torn off and burned alive and upside down crucified. It didn't mean that they didn't have God. It didn't mean that Jesus wasn't this beautiful, holy Buddhadasa, yogi, amazing, enlightened being. But it meant if you have God, it doesn't matter what happens in the physical reality. He's with you in your spirit, always, the eternal spirit. And that's like the Dhamma. Nothing lasts forever, but when you're not attached to this bullshit ego self, when you realize everything's anicca, dukkha, anatta, in a weird way, you are lasting forever in the moment. In a weird way, it is the only eternal thing is the Dhamma. It's like we think of Buddha as this guy who lived long ago, but he found a way out of the wheel of birth and death and samsara. And in that way, don't get it confused with magical thing that there's like a soul that lasts forever. But there is something there. There is a eternal thing, even though we focus so much on everything is impermanent. And that's true, everything is impermanent. But I feel almost there needs to be a little asterisk, like in the physical realm, everything is
Well,
impermanent. But in
well,
the
it
realm
is.
of the Dhamma, you live forever.
They do refer to the deathless, right?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like
And
the
so,
one who knows.
I mean, that's it. But I mean, that's the thing, like you said, Dhammarato, it's like not getting confused with that, with some ideas, some
Magical soul
traditions.
personality.
Yeah, or yeah, personality, that there's a personality that lasts forever. It's like, no, it is through the disidentification, through the detachment of, no stone left unturned.
Hmm.
This is why it's like looking and it's thorough. That's
Yeah,
how one One,
the satisfaction doesn't require a consciousness, so to speak, but yet it is consciousness itself. It's almost like it can be both things. It's like when you're satisfied because there's no past and future thinking of this ego. That's all the ego is a story of the past and future. When you're satisfied, you're not dwelling on the past or future. It doesn't mean you don't exist, but in a weird way, you kind of don't exist, and it feels amazing. In a weird way, you never did exist. In a weird way, you're out of the cycle of birth and death. It sounds magical, but it's really, I guess what I'm trying to say, it's like, there's not, like, emptiness is form is emptiness. Sometimes I feel like the magical thinking is the super realistic practical thinking. It's the same thing in a weird way. I don't know. I can't articulate it well, but
no, I think it's interesting because, when we use the magical sort of wording, and there can be a lot of fanciness to it. Like, on one hand, it can be, incredibly accurate, in terms of, like, just like being like, okay, no, it like is like this wonderful, wowee, this is everything anyone could have ever, hoped for. Actually, it's beyond that, because anything you could hope for is beyond. But, at the same time, this is what I appreciate with Dhammarato, because it is coming back to, just this is enough, just this breath. We can get out there, but this is sort of also, I find, the balance between the piti and that joyful success. That almost seems to have a scale which caps out at, incomprehensible. But at the same time, we have the sukha. Well, the sukha is really arrived at when we recognize that there is no scale, there is no level here. Just being satisfied, like, that is enough. Satisfaction doesn't have a scale. When we drop the scale to satisfaction, we recognize just a dab of satisfaction will be, just this breath will be. Because it's really, the satisfaction is the satisfaction of the end of dissatisfaction. It's not really an additional quality. It's actually born from the negation of dissatisfaction. And that is why it's truly reliable, because it can't be pointed on any particular phenomena which arises in, and
it's beyond space and time. It's beyond us self. It's beyond everything. It's beyond beyond every, like, I love the phrase that the questions don't even arise. The answers and the questions don't even arise. The time doesn't even arise. The questions of birth and death don't even arise. The questions of, am I existing eternally, or am I existing momentarily, or am I never existing at all, never arise. And it's like resting in peace. And I always love that in cemeteries when you see that on the, what a beautiful phrase, poetic, how humans just kind of naturally fell upon that truth, resting in peace. And even the ones who believed in heaven wrote on the grave, rest in peace. And it's just such a truth to that, they almost didn't even know they're speaking it. Resting in peace, no mind, no problem, as Ajahn Chah said.
No mind.
But yeah, man, I should probably get going because I gotta pick up my daughter pretty soon. But man, it's been great talking with you, dude.
Wonderful.
Dhamma all day, man. Morning,
Dhamma
noon, and night. It's good at the beginning, the middle, and end.
That's the way to do it.
Totally,
or not
man.
do it.
Yeah. You're awesome, dude.
Or not do it. Just it. I don't know. Just this. All right.
Just is.
All right. Thank you, Dhammadasa.
Much peace and love, man. Love talking to you, dude. You're awesome. Bye, bud.
All right. Keep on rocking.